Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening and call to order the Burnsville Planning Commission for Monday, February 12th. Our first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Any changes from staff?
I have one change, Chair. I wish to move item number 6 and move that to new item number 3. This is a preliminary and final plat request as well as a planning and development. The agenda states that there's not a public hearing. However, it should also be noted that this is a public hearing. It was properly noticed in the newspaper as well as mailing notification to property owners within 350 feet. So a small note on that as well.
Okay. Commissioners, any changes to the agenda? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 is approval of the minutes from the January 8th Planning Commission meeting. Staff or commissioners, any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So we are now on item 3, which as amended is a public hearing for Hegedus Family LLP for a concept and development stage PUD, a preliminary and final plat of Abdallah Candies located at 3501 County Road 42 West. Ms. Dean.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thought I'd be able to jump to that quick. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, here we go, sorry. Okay. Planning Commission, you may remember this property was before you just a few months ago in 2017. And it was a request for Modern Sportsman to go into the existing Abdallah Candies building. This was a planned unit development to allow a gun range and retail component to that. As part of that review, staff noticed that the property had not been platted, that it was a registered land survey. And so our recommendation to the commission and ultimately one of the conditions of approval was to replat plat the property into a traditional lot and block. So that's what the request is before you today. Property is zoned I-3 PUD guided industrial office on the corner of County Road 42 and Burnsville Parkway West. Gives you an overall aerial view of the site. The orange indicates where the current registered land survey description goes to. And this is the current existing conditions with the building footprint. Parking. I do want to note that there is parking along that north property line that will be impacted by the new property line, which will actually be at the approximate 0 foot setback. It's an existing non-conforming situation. In order to recognize that, staff has recommended to the applicant that a plan unit development deviation is requested at this time to ensure that there aren't any future title issues. So that is also part of the request. This is an overview of the preliminary plat. Again, a traditional lot and block now. Lot 1, Block 1, Abdallah Candies. This north portion shows the dedicated right-of-way to the county for County Road 42. It's basically what you see out there today would remain. No changes would occur physically out on site. As part of that, there is also a sidewalk that would be dedicated officially to the county. Staff does recommend approval of the request. Certainly, if you have any questions, the applicant and representative are in the audience. I'd also stand for any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Dean? Seeing none, any for the applicant? We're an easy bunch. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Public hearing.
Oh, we've got to open a public hearing. So
There you go.
there we go. All right. Forgot about the public hearing that we had. So it's, we'll open the public hearing at 6:35 PM. Anyone interested in speaking on this item, the Abdallah Candies item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Now, it's time for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Benke.
I would move that the planning commission recommend to city council approval of concept and development stage PUD and preliminary and final plat for Abdallah Candies located at 3501 County Road 42 West.
Motion by Commissioner Benke. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Bradrick. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And we are now on to item 4, which is a public hearing for U.S. Homes Corp. doing business as Lennar for a concept and development stage planned unit development and preliminary plat of Kenwood Crossing for a 27-unit owner-occupied townhouse development and a concept stage PUD for a convenience store, gas station, and car wash proposed on the vacant land southwest of the intersection of 136th Street West and County Road 5, site east of Valley Ridge Senior Housing. Ms. Dean?
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. This site was originally developed in the 60s, and at one point had a shopping center on the location where you see the existing Valley Ridge apartment building and also the vacant site. Those were torn down, and in 2010, approved was the CDA, Community Development Agency building, as well as an outlot was created, or a lot was created for future development. This was originally envisioned as a mixed-use development when this concept went through in 2010. The original development anticipated not only the building that you see there today, the apartment and assisted living, but it also envisioned retail, commercial, and office on the eastern portion of the site. Some time has gone by. The lot has sat vacant for quite some time, and before us in 2017, we have the application for not only Lennar, but you'll see later on in the evening, a development proposal for Quick Trip as well. I should note that representation from the CDA as well as Lennar and Quick Trip, again, for later, are here today. Just to orient yourself, County Road 5 to the east, Burnsville Parkway kind of hits the northwest portion of the site. 138th Street West hits the very north portion. Neal Park is across the street, across a collector road, which is Burnsville Parkway. There is another park, just for reference, to the west of the site as well. An MBTA bus stop is located on the east portion within the right-of-way, near the sidewalk. The site itself, it's zoned mixed use. It's also guided mixed use. The overall acreage of the vacant parcel is 6.69 acres. The townhouse development, which would be the southern portion, which we'll get into a little further later, is approximately 1.37 acres, where the actual homes would be built. The outlot, which includes part of the sloped area behind the units, as well as the private street and common open space for the townhouse development, is approximately 3.48 acres. And then the future lot for Quick Trip is 1.84 acres approximately. Overall net density for the townhouses by themselves is approximately 19.70, meeting our city code requirements. This gives you an overview of the plat, which is proposed. Again, Quick Trip would be that lot 8, which you'll hear about later on in the evening. The Lennar townhouse, each unit would have their own property lines. The homes range from 3 townhomes together to 4 townhomes together. The outlot, again, the open space on that south portion of the property, as well as the common areas, including private sidewalk, private driveways. This gives you a better picture of the site plan and the site layout. 27 units. Each of those units are approximately 3 bedrooms, 3 baths each, slab-on-grade construction. Each unit would have a 2-car garage and driveway. There are 14 guest parking stalls that are proposed, mostly around the north portion of the Lennar property, as well as 2 spaces on the southern portion of the property that meet city code. The overall square footage of the units, minus the garages, is approximately 1,800 square feet to 1,900 square feet. Add in the garages, ranges 2,100 to 2,300 square feet. Should note that the 1.3 acres of open space is proposed to be retained, preserved, and maintained by the association, or kept in its natural state, essentially. There are pedestrian and vehicle cross-access points, not only with Quick Trip, but also with the CDA site to the west. That was listed in the 2010 agreement to retain cross-access with future Phase 2 development, which this is Phase 2. Staff recommends that that's also included as part of this proposal. An overview of the grading plan. I do want to note stormwater for the site is located just north of these units here. Our staff engineer can help answer more questions should they arise regarding the grading plan. I should note that there are retaining walls located on the south portion up against that open space. However, they're not proposing to grade within that area, again, for the preservation. An overall view of the landscaping. Landscaping is proposed, evergreens along the County Road 5 side, as well as the northern portion of the site. Quick Trip and Lennar are proposing also to work together to help create a buffer between the future proposed convenience store, gas station, and the townhome units, particularly along this north common lot line here and parking area. Staff does recommend that additional playground equipment or some type of amenity is added to the site. Because Neal Park is within 1/2 mile as the crow flies. However, access to active play activity is located much further than that. Staff recommends that it's located on site, or another recommendation is that they work with the CDA to locate some type of play equipment on that site, and there be an agreement for use. Staff also recommends that a landscape strip between the driveways is added, and I'll switch over slides. This is a detailed version of the foundation landscape plan. I'll use the bottom left townhouse example as my example. The middle unit has a shared driveway, and so staff is recommending that in this case, where they have the shared driveway for both garages, that a landscape strip is added. It's also presented in their marketing materials, landscape strip in between the units. Kind of jumped ahead there, but I also want to point out one of the recommendations from staff is in regards to the garage sizes. City code requires 440 square feet. The garage sizes, in staff opinion, are undersized and may create issues with, 1, parking larger size vehicles, or 2, storing garbage and recycling containers and other potential household items, camping equipment, coolers, balls and bats, things like that. So we want to make sure that they at least meet city code requirements. This is a proposed elevation. The exteriors do meet city code requirements as far as materials, mix of materials. The color palette is neutral in tone. The height meets our height requirements, and the density, again, meets the density requirements. This is just a more construction type drawing. To give you an example, I should note that these units are not back-to-back, so the future homeowners will have the opportunity to enjoy a back patio, as well as they'll be able to have the access from the front. So they'll also have sunlight coming through multiple spots instead of just one face. There are deviations. Again, the garage sizes, as I mentioned before, there's one deviation in regards to the setback to County Road 5. City code requires 50 feet. They're showing a 40-foot setback to the property line along the east elevation. I should note, we did receive a comment from the county plat review department, and it was mentioned that the applicant should address the noise, interior noise of each unit. We've received similar comment from similar townhomes and single-family home developments. So what staff has proposed is that a condition's added so that the homes are constructed to mitigate any noise, and more details are added to the conditions. I did speak with Lennar representation. They said they could easily accommodate that request. One last thing I forgot to note, there's currently environmental mitigation currently proposed or ongoing, should I say. As part of staff's recommendation, we're recommending that that's cleaned up and satisfies the MPCA as well as the EPA requirements prior to certainly any construction or building permit issuance. That would be worked out as part of the development contract. Getting back to the PUD itself, there are benefits to granting whenever you look at should the commission or should the commission recommend approval, or should the city council approve a project, we need to weigh those benefits. So outlined here, the parcel has been vacant for over approximately 6 years. The request is for owner-occupied housing, which is seen as a benefit. There are sidewalks that will connect not only the existing CDA Valley Ridge development, also connect with other amenities like the MBTA bus stop, our existing parks trail and sidewalk system, which is a benefit, as well as other nearby retail amenities. The applicant is reserving 1.38 acres of open space, which the association will maintain. And overall, if you look at this as a larger plan unit development with the Valley Ridge building, the Quick Trip building, and the Lennar proposal, the green space requirements exceed city code. With that, staff does recommend approval. There are 10 conditions added. I can certainly go through any of them if you have any questions, but with that, again, staff does recommend approval. The applicant is in the audience, as well as representation from the CDA. If there's further questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dean. Commissioners, questions?
I have a couple.
Okay. Commissioner Benke?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Dean, just to start with here, from an overall standpoint, does the proposal sort of meet the MIX zoning? I mean, how does it meet the intent of that zoning? I'm seeing basically typical suburban development.
So if you look at the mixed-use zoning, it does reference that a multifamily zoning is allowed. When you go through the checklist, it does meet the requirements as far as the density, the maximums, it does fall. Could it be more dense? Would city staff support something more dense? Yes.
Okay. I guess I was thinking of it more in terms of the true mixed use with multiple uses in a building, or a little bit more homogeneous mix of uses.
If,
It's not coming that way.
Yeah.
The application doesn't go in that way at all. There was no discussion from the applicant about anything like that. Okay. I'm a little bit taken aback by the use of the outlot to enclose all of the private drives in order to take that out of the buildable area in order to bring the density up to the max. I don't think I've ever seen a townhome project that's done that. Is there a reason why the private drives aren't platted as a lot, which is a little more typical of townhome development?
The reason why they're platted as part of the outlot, that was more at the direction of city staff in regards to the width, the maintenance of the drive. Maybe, I don't know, Brian, do you want to speak more to that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. And planning commission members, they're essentially talking back and forth with the city attorney. There's that fear of if the property gets turned back, or if an association lets the property go for tax purposes, things like that, maintenance, that tying all of that together with the local streets or private drives would essentially eliminate that possibility from happening, especially with such a large green space that would be there. It would be a large maintenance nightmare for the city if it was to get turned back over to the city in the long run. So I know the city engineer talked with the city attorney about it, and this is kind of what his recommendation was to bring it to.
I guess I've always seen the streets as a separate lot, and then, sure, the green space could be an outlet. I guess I'm a little challenged by the premise that because the streets are part of the outlet, they don't come into the math on density. I'll leave that one for later. Under the lighting, it talked about garage and porch lighting, additional details. What was the, what's being looked for there from the applicant?
As far as the lighting, it would be up to the applicant to provide at time of building permit. It would just fall back to our standard lighting code, can't exceed
Okay.
X amount of
At the-
foot candles at the property
At
line.
the property line, right? I just wanted to double check. I think that's it for staff.
Any additional? Commissioner Bradrick?
Thank you. For the size of the garage, are we okay if they meet city code from spacing and setbacks, the garages are expanded and still meet everything we're looking at with mixed use? Because I know that's a little,
It's possible that they could run into some issues with setbacks, depending on how things are positioned. If they want to expand the footprint of the townhomes itself, or does that get pushed into the unit itself, and they lose space in, a kitchen or a living room space or something like that.
okay.
I'm sure the applicant could speak further to it.
And then Brent, how does the underground stormwater work with the property? So is that right in front of those two units as part of the association, or how does that work with it as close it is to it's on the driveways, under the driveways of those units?
You're gonna see something real similar with Quick Trip. They're gonna have basically separate storm sewer systems across from each other. And essentially what happens is all the storm sewer collects the stormwater within the development, routes it to that. There was a pond that was originally designed to accommodate this development, this entire PUD. Since then, some of the laws and regulations have changed, so we want to try to obtain some more infiltration. So it's really a means of trying to get some of that water into a piping system so that it can infiltrate into the ground, reducing some of the volume and things like that that go into that pond. With that said, again, the original PUD, that pond was designed for that, so this is really, I see this, and in addition to Quick Trip, as really a benefit to the project.
I agree. I mean, versus, but I'm just saying, in this instance, the actual stormwater containment system below ground is underneath a couple of residents' driveways.
Correct.
How does that work from a standpoint, then, does the association still have control over that, or is it really in that lot?
It's within the outlot. It's
It's
within
within
the
the
actual
outlot.
outlot, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, back to that original question on the outlot, this kind of went back and forth quite a bit. I think they might have, I don't know about the whole density of things as the engineer, I don't take care of that, but I know that they originally had submitted the application the way you had indicated originally with private drives as a separate lot. I think it still met the requirements. This really came down to a maintenance, there was a fear from the city of the maintenance of that large green space area, and so we thought this was the best way, or the city attorney thought this was the best way to capture all of that and eliminate that risk for the city.
So how does, I'm sorry,
I'm done.
okay, so how does having all the common space as an outlot eliminate risk to the city?
I'll tell you what, I can't give you the answer today. I'd have to have the city attorney comment on that.
Maybe I could add, if the open space was an outlot on its own, the concern is that would go tax forfeit at some point in the future. We have multiple lots throughout the city that are tax forfeit, that they're kind of in no man's land, as far as who maintains in the future. So we really wanted, the association to have ultimate ownership of that and not fall into the county or the city in the future.
Okay, I think I gotta let it go for now, but I still don't understand how it's different than lotting the common property as a lot and having the association own that as well, but I'll let that go for now.
I think we could surely, provide an answer. Based on the recommendation before it goes to council, we can definitely get an answer from the attorney on that.
Sure.
Because I think we did have it that way at one time too, where everything was a separate lot. And I just don't recall what the reason was from the attorney for that.
Any additional questions for staff? Do we have questions for the applicant? If the applicant would come forward, please, if you could provide your name and address for the record. Great.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Joe Jablonski, representing Lennar this evening. Address is 16305 36th Avenue, Plymouth, Minnesota, 55446.
Thank you. Commissioner Benke.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I was saving the question for the garages for you as well, and I guess I was trying to find out where you wanted to go with that.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because that's one of the couple things that I'd like to discuss with you folks if possible. The garage issue is something that it does cause us some real heartache. It is a plan that is created. It's a plan that we have built throughout the Twin Cities successfully. And to go back and revise just for garage changes, a material change that would probably take us to a point where we'd have to reconsider moving forward with this project. That also in consideration with, we do think that through. I think Regina has a few pictures to show some examples of how two full-size vehicles can fit in the garage. And on the, let's see, it'd be my right, with the two black cars, you can see the garage or the garbage cans are at the front of the garage. You can't really see with the picture with the white vehicle. But there is, you know, it is a lifestyle choice. It is something that as people are moving in, they're moving into a garage that's already there. They understand that, you know, they're moving into a maintenance-free type of situation. They're not going to have snow blowers, snow removal, lawn care, all that stuff is taken care of for them. That's why we build these, and, you know, we don't have a lot of comments about the garage is too small. I recognize, and staff pointed out early to us that this is your code. I recognize that, but that's one of the deviations that we are looking for tonight and hoping for your consideration.
Okay.
Commissioners, additional questions?
No, you said there was two issues?
There is one other thing for sure that I would like to discuss if possible, and that would be the recreational facility. As you can see from the site plan, there's not a lot of room. We did maintain the 1.3 acres of preserved space, which is mostly trees and creates a really nice buffer from the existing neighborhood. You can also see on that there's 2 retaining walls. That's a pretty steep slope there. And to try to do anything with the playground back in there probably doesn't make as much sense as saving that. And based on the rest of the site plan, there's really not room to put any recreational facility. It's not that, you know, we're not interested in doing that, but you don't want to stick it right up by the gas station either, necessarily, in that little triangle part. That's just not a real good place to do that.
Additional questions? All right, thank you. If not, I think we'll open the public hearing. If there's no more questions. So it's 7:02, and we'll open up the public hearing for this. I've got a number of people signed in. I'm not sure if it's for this item or not, but if you're here for this, please feel free to come up to the podium, identify yourself and your address for the record, and, sir.
Good evening, and thank you.
Thank
I'm,
Please identify,
my
provide your
name is
name and
Steve
your address.
Brohez,
Thanks.
and my address is actually 2525 Williams Drive in Burnsville, apartment building. I work at Valley Ridge, and our concern was noted at the meeting held at Valley Ridge is it is a senior housing project. We have independent and assisted living there. We have people in power chairs, walkers. We have people that are legally blind. And we're concerned about connecting our driveway onto this property for the safety of our residents. That is, to me and to most of the residents, a very strong concern. Because you know what happens in apartment buildings, people don't slow down. And I just want it noted that we read the minutes out there, and we really think it's being disrespected to a point, not considering that. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Sir, please provide your name and address for the record.
My name is Gene Gendorf, 1921 West Burnsville Parkway. I am a resident at Valley Ridge. I have a number of concerns. One was the driveway issue. And then I just noticed from tonight's meeting that they're talking about installing lights throughout the townhome. My property is actually, if we could put up a map, could you put up an overhead? There you go. If you, to the left, right there, that big triangle there in the back of the building, where you see the, yeah, that triangle right there. That is all open space. And our concern on that end of the building is the fact that number one, what kind of lighting are they gonna be having there? Is it just gonna be porch lights, or are they gonna end up having pole lights, or? That's one of my concerns right there. Right now, we don't have to deal with any lights. The only light that I have to deal with myself personally is just a light that sits in the middle of the backyard. But if we start putting in units in there, you're gonna have all these multiple lights, and that's just gonna create an issue with us, at night, sleeping, watching TV, or whatever it is that we wanna do. Was my first concern. My second concern is the playground. And I don't understand why there isn't an accommodation. I mean, naturally, these places are gonna have families. They're gonna have kids, so where are all these kids gonna go? Are they gonna go here? Are they gonna go in our little triangle back there? Are they gonna be on our property playing all the time? That's my main concern. I don't want all the kids over there. I live on the bottom floor. So now you bring in all these additional families. Do I get to deal with kids playing in the yard? Baseball's going through my windows. Are we gonna have a problem with kids looking into the windows? Are we gonna have a problem at night with people breaking into apartments? Because everything's on the first floor? And you go around the building, that's all memory care. What's gonna happen to those people over there? Are they gonna be safe? Are they gonna feel safe? I don't think they are. And I don't think that enough thought has been given into this as far as the safety and the welfare of the residents that are already there. And my personal opinion is that CDA just wants to push this thing through because they just want to get rid of the property. My other issue is, I noticed tonight that they want to buffer the townhomes because of a noise issue adjoining County Road 5. What kind of buffer do we get? We're not going to get any kind of a buffer. What I proposed earlier in the meeting that was brought up to us was that I proposed that we put in a fence between the properties. That way, it's not going to keep everybody out, but it's going to be a deterrent to keep people from just thinking that they just walk over to the property and do whatever they want to do over there. My last point is this green space that they have. This green space, the arrowhead in the diagram, that is nothing but a gully. That gully goes down about 30, 40 feet. It's not even, I don't even understand how they can even call it a green space. The only reason why they can't do anything with it is because it can't be built on. So that's all I have to say for right now. Is there another time when we can speak, like city council meeting, if this thing ends up going through? Is there any other meetings scheduled for this?
Correct.
The time to speak is at the public hearing tonight, so that's what this is for. If the planning commission makes a recommendation to move this forward, it will go to the city council next week. If there's a unanimous vote on the recommendation, then it doesn't typically get discussed at the council meeting. You can check in with the city clerk and let them know that you would like to speak at the meeting or pull the item off, and then they will advise the mayor, and they may or may not do that.
Okay, this is all new to me, so.
But you can certainly, if any type of, if you want to submit a letter or your comments, an email, any of that type of thing, all that will be forwarded to the entire city council, so they'll have that before the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out tonight. Anyone else who'd like to speak on this one? Ma'am? Please say your name and address and for the record.
My name is Linda Cater, and I also live at 1921 West Burnsville Parkway. Years ago, my parents owned a half acre on the east side of 35W. In 1997, they moved out of Burnsville because Burnsville could not stop the trucks using their engine brakes descending north on 35W. You are suggesting that this road in front of our building become public access. Through the summer months, you'll find lots of young ones really revving their engines and making a nuisance of themselves on Burnsville Parkway. With your opening up this, what was, we thought, a driveway to public access, are you going to be able to maintain that it's used in a manner that isn't going to run over senior citizens when they're walking? Another thing that puzzles me is how is it that someone can decide to build so many homes on their property and then just say, my kids will play in your backyard? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, if we're going to keep a quality of life here in Burnsville, that we give people what they need to raise their children well. I'm glad somebody noticed that the playground was way at the other end of Neal Park. And, you know, who would send their children on, you know, unsupervised? It's not a park that children could have access to unless they had adults that would be helping them get there, because there is no crosswalk that is convenient for children to use. They have to go, you know, way far away to get on a crosswalk, you know, much farther west on the Burnsville Parkway. So maybe build less homes. Give the people, like, I have never seen a garage in Burnsville that looked like these pictures. People in Burnsville store things in their garage. They have, you know, they have sports that they're involved in. They have all different kinds of activities that they're involved with their children. They don't keep their garages with only 2 garbage cans and 2 cars, and there's barely enough space for people to get into their cars in those pictures. Just some things to think about. We have a community here, and we want to give people what they need to raise families well, not try to eke out every single dollar.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:12 p.m. Commissioners? Commissioner Bradrick.
Staff, can we talk a little bit about the driveway concerns? You had mentioned that originally it was part of the development with Valley Ridge to tie the two together. The plans that are submitted, we did tie it into the drive that goes to Valley Ridge, but it looks to me like that would be a little less of a convenient way to get in from the new drive that's gonna come in, that's gonna service both the Quick Trip. Yeah, if you look there, the drive coming in from Burnsville Parkway, and there's no concerns with that being divided or left turns or anything, is there? I didn't catch that when I was driving around there. There's no reason you can't turn left and pull into the new drive traveling west on Burnsville Parkway, is there, being the resident historian?
I'm trying to get my head around the travel direction you got.
Okay. But going west on Burnsville Parkway, you'll be able to turn left, or going
Well, that's
east.
136th Street.
I'm sorry, 126.
136th.
136. Yeah, so there's no divided
No.
there. Okay, so explain to us, because it looks like when Valley Ridge was built, the road in your picture there shows that it was planned to go somewhere.
Right, so it's a driveway, and so the driveway was anticipated to connect with the future Phase 2, the office and retail. As you see in many developments where there's cross-access, that's something that we would request that's in place and recorded between the properties, not only for vehicular access, but also pedestrian access. It was anticipated, it is shown on the proposed plans as well. Could it be stubbed and still function on its own? Yes. But in the spirit of mixed-use development and still keeping that play between the two uses, staff is recommending that it's retained and maintained.
The, just to address the lighting question, where that's simply based around street lighting, correct?
There is street lighting that's proposed, as is with all of our new developments. It would be a lower scale, I think, than your typical residential street, as it's a private road. It would be appropriate for the area, similar to, I'm trying to think of a recent project, River Valley Townhomes. They have some, if you remember that, some, I guess, more pedestrian scale street lighting. And then the lighting would be also on the buildings, traditional for any townhouse or single-family home.
Can I ask a couple more? So,
Commissioner
Ri-
Ryder.
River Valley, did we have a deviation for the garage size at River Valley?
No.
We did not. River Valley, did River Valley have a playground?
I believe that was added as a condition of approval.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's installed yet.
And was there a playground at Rose Bluff? Ms. Garros, you might.
Rose Bluff is adjacent to the Edward Kramer Preserve, Park Preserve.
With the trail?
Yes. And it is also part of the Greenway system, so there will be a trail connecting.
We didn't require them to have an on-site, but because we had to change the back lots to make room for the trail when
Correct. They did have some park dedication, to add to the Kramer area. Basically, it was a wetland and wooded area that's not developable. However, the part of Rose Bluff that's within the city of Burnsville is only a small part, about 20, 30 acres. The majority of that development is in the city of Savage, and there are parks within, just to the west.
And if I can add, Rose Bluff is a single-family development, so our multifamily developments, which, because this is mixed use and they're proposing multifamily associated with it, you refer to the multifamily zoning district requirements, our special requirements for multifamily, and that's where it's required. So it's unique to multifamily.
multifamily. And hence the requirement we had off of, was it River Valley?
River Valley Townhomes by the fire station.
Yeah, Fire Station 2. Okay. Sure, that's all I have at this time.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Benke?
I guess I wanted to elaborate on the drive a little bit more too. Obviously, the mix zoning was there before the building was built, and it is the goal to tie that whole project, to keep that whole project a single entity. I'm struggling a little bit with the part that looks, you can see it right here, to me, that, well, wait a second, let's go to the site for a
Site
second, if you could. Yeah. Yeah, when you look at this, somebody turning off 136 is unlikely to be trying to race into the Valley Ridge project. You're either going to the townhomes or you're going to Valley Ridge and you're making this turn instead of the next one. I could see residents using this to access the garage, which is, I believe, on that end of the building. Now, if you could go back to the aerial photo, this one concerns me because somebody who knows Quick Trip is there, and I know that Quick Trip is the next item. I could see somebody trying to shortcut off of Burnsville Parkway and using this drive. So this direction of the drive bothers me. Have we done, is there anything that we've done in the past to try to calm traffic?
Commissioner, we talked this through, again, back to the circulation. It's not necessary completely from a traffic standpoint. I think we agreed as staff that at a bare minimum, pedestrian traffic connection would want to be made. Again, we don't like to use speed bumps, things of that nature. We can use signage, that's pretty typical. But again, once a signage for something like this is up, typically it becomes numb to the people that are using it day after day. So, again, from an overall planning perspective, it was a desired connection as a part of the overall PUD. Would it be absolutely necessary from a traffic standpoint and circulation? Not for this amount of trips that would be created with this. Sure. And I would, again, most of the trips I think are gonna come off of 136th Street, but I could see some people shortcutting this, for a quick trip. But, again, I think pedestrian traffic is definitely desired, for a connection.
Absolutely.
But it's not to say we
And also
Could
folks
possibly.
visiting the CDA building, if they want to go to grab something at Quick Trip,
Well,
are
right,
able
I
to do
agree.
that.
I agree, and I think you sort of jumped over very quickly the point I was trying to get to, I think, was that while we as a city tend not to want to encourage us putting in speed bumps and things like this is a private drive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And certainly the ownership has the ability to do that as they see fit.
Absolutely. I'll just note too that I know we've had some comments that were against this, but we also heard comments for it at some of the meetings as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, I do see how the circulation can work. I do see how the sidewalks would be the main benefit and the main beneficiary of the connection. I think it's the straight shot into Quick Trip
Yep.
that makes it the issue.
Correct, I would agree.
Additional question?
Yep.
Points?
As for the lights, I think, like you pointed out, typically any lights are gonna have to meet the one, I think it's the one candle per foot at the property
At the
line.
property line adjacent to residential.
And I also noticed that the units face each other, they face north-south, so the garages are actually not really aimed at the existing Valley Ridge building. The garages, basically the lights are facing each other at the garages and porch lights too. The garage bothers me, especially the picture as well, having built a number of units in town. That's not what the garages look like, not 10 minutes after people move in. I'm struggling a little bit with it, mainly because I do see room for larger garages that, from a construction standpoint, would take little change. I guess I don't want to design the buildings for the applicant, but I see space that's on-site without hurting the units where the garages could get 2 feet deeper without any trouble at all. And just as an observation, historically, garages have always been measured to the outside of the walls. These are measured to the inside. And I think if that happens, you could actually see that the garages are much closer to the minimums. The lack of a playground too bothers me. The fact that there's no room left is sort of backward. I mean, you could design the playground and then design the units around it. Neal Park is a long way away. I was there with my grandkids last week. We were sliding on the hill, and it's about as far away from this project as you can get, and there is no way I would have any child under the age of junior high trying to walk from these units to that park. So I'm struggling with that a lot too. By the way, where are we at in the meeting here? It's just discussion?
It is,
Okay,
yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't getting into something else. Okay. I think that's pretty much my issues, and I guess most of them weren't questions as much as comments.
Well, and I think I will, I agree with the concerns that have been raised about the garages. I live in a townhouse over around Early Lake, and I know the garages are issues there. They're 2-car garages, but I can barely fit my 2 cars in there. So I see that. I agree with the point that was made that it really is a lifestyle choice, but I think once the units are built, it's a challenge. So I am, I think, leaning towards the staff recommendation on that, but I think that's my primary concern. But commissioners, is there any, do we have a motion or any more comments that you'd like to make?
None for me.
We've got a
Chair.
small one,
Yeah,
small contingency.
yeah, right, okay.
Chair, I would be supportive of the staff recommendations.
Is there a motion?
We were just having discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, as far as the staff recommendations, yeah, I see them as pretty thorough.
I would,
I would
like to make a
entertain.
motion.
Commissioner Bradrick.
I move the planning commission recommend the city council approval of the development stage plan unit development and preliminary plat for Kenwood Crossing for a 27-unit owner occupied townhome development and stage concept PUD for a convenience store, gas station, and car wash proposed on the vacant land southwest intersection of 136th Street and County Road 5.
We
With
have a
the
motion.
attached 10 staff recommended conditions.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Commissioner
I just
Minke.
realized that, would you be amenable, Commissioner Bradrick, to adding a condition regarding the issue of the driveway and, no, I guess, how do we do that? I was thinking of how do we incorporate it, something with the CDA, but they're gonna do what they need to do, it's their property. I withdraw the second for discussion, I'll just second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. So this will be on the agenda of the city council on
February 20th.
February 20th at 5:30 PM. Thank you to everyone who came out for that item. We'll move on to the next item 5 on our agenda, public hearing for Quick Trip Incorporated for development stage planned unit development for a Quick Trip convenience store with fueling canopy and attached double bay car wash to be located at the southwest corner of 136th Street and County Road 5. Ms. Dean?
Thank you, Chair,
Some of
members
this
of the
will be familiar.
commission. Familiar site. This is Lot 8 of the proposed preliminary plat, that north corner or north portion of the property. Again, it's zoned mixed, guided mixed. The actual Quick Trip would occupy 1.84 acres of the site. This is a site plan to orient yourself. This is approximately northerly direction, 136th Street. This is that private drive. Burnsville Parkway is located off the screen to the northwest. County Road 5 is to the east. The actual Quick Trip is approximately 10,000 square feet. There is the convenience store, which is located here, and then the attached car wash, which is located just east of that. The fueling canopy, almost 5,000 square feet, is located right here. Parking is located around the perimeter or on the east portion of the site, as well as adjacent to the building. The overall site does include, I do want to highlight a couple of things, does include a outdoor picnic area. This was originally, just for reference, originally located adjacent to the front property line along 136th Street. Staff has worked with the applicant to move it more adjacent to the building. It includes picnic tables as well as the bike rack area surrounded by a decorative metal fence as well as perennial landscaping to act as a buffer. So there's bike parking located within that general area, as well as 48 parking stalls located on site. There would be pedestrian and vehicle cross access with the neighboring properties, Lennar and the CDA. Landscape plan, further detail. The site itself exceeds the number of trees and shrubs, perennials that are required for the site. Again, noting the seating area. Do want to mention, however, the overall landscaping, there is a deviation that's requested for the site itself. Overall green space is at 23%, city code requires 25%. There is also a deviation request for building perimeter landscaping. 21% of the building perimeter is proposed to be landscaped primarily along the east portion of that car wash. And then 2% of the parking lot area is proposed to be landscaped. I should note that there are concrete planters that would be located adjacent to the building, which would house annuals as well as seasonal greens throughout the year. It was mentioned by Quick Trip as part of their request that one, there's difficulty meeting ADA standards, as well as the points for the trash containers, access to the car wash, the front door, would provide difficulty meeting that 50% landscaping requirement. Also noted was previous experience due to salt and other issues with maintaining building perimeter landscaping in the past. It should be noted that landscaping for the overall PUD, including the CDA site and the Lennar development, far exceeds the green space requirements if you're looking at it, the PUD as a whole. We received this today. This was not in your packet, but I just wanted to present a color version of the landscape plan to give you a better idea of what this may look like. I should also note that Quick Trip is working with Lennar to add a landscape buffer between the townhouse development as well as their proposed car wash. Talking about circulation, we should probably talk about that a little bit. There would be the car wash stacking queuing located along the south portion of the building, and then the vehicles entering the car wash via the south portion of the building, exiting to the north, with the blowers located on that north portion of the property. Snow storage would be located in the northeast corner. And then this portion of the landscaping is highlighted around the monument sign, which is a code requirement. Also, landscaping is heavily placed at the sidewalk entry and various entry points. The grading plan, our engineer could speak more to that if questions arise. It's kind of difficult to read on the screen. I'm going to skip over that for now. Proposed elevations, I should note that the exterior materials far exceed our city code requirements. It's very heavy on brick and glass. The Quick Trip provides a entry feature, an arched entry feature. They are using EFS for this location, but again, primarily brick around all sides with a soldier course of brick to add as an accent around the front and sides of the building. An asphalt roof is proposed. Previously, a standing seam roof was proposed, a green standing seam roof. At staff's recommendation, that has been changed to an asphalt roof, so it's more in keeping with the townhouse development as well as the CDA building. I should also point out the percentage of windows. The percentage of windows, it's required to be 25% along essentially the roadways. And so the front elevation meets that. The south elevation does not need to meet that requirement. The rear elevation, this is the east elevation facing County Road 42, that does not meet the requirement. It's approximately 10%. However, there is landscaping that's proposed at the base of the building, and it's a car wash, as well as the areas where windows would be placed does not make sense for their proposed floor plan. The right elevation That is the north portion of the property that does meet our city code requirements. Fueling canopy elevations, the fueling canopy is 20 feet in height. It meets city code. At the request of staff, Quick Trip has wrapped the canopy poles in brick. That's a benefit to the city. As mentioned before, there's 10 double-sided fuel pumps. Within each of those pumps is a speaker. There will be no overhead speakers, and so any noise would be coming straight from the fuel pump itself. And another thing to note, there will be no outdoor display under the canopy. Sometimes you'll go to a fueling station in some other cities and you'll see boxes of windshield wiper fluid and salt and other items, and that will not be located outside of the store. There will be there is a proposed ice machine and propane tanks as part of their request. And that is something that they could request under city code. I should note the same condition as proposed with the Lennar development regarding the environmental contamination also carries over to the Quick Trip. The city would like to see that resolved with the MPCA and EPA prior to release of any building permits for the site. There are deviations, again, related to the landscaping, as well as the windows along that east elevation. There are benefits, however, to granting the PUD. One, the parcel's been vacant for 6 years. The exterior materials, again, far exceed our standard base requirements with that high use of face brick and glass. The applicant is proposing sidewalks and a bike rack, which is a benefit. The applicant's proposing that defined picnic area. And I should mention there's also colored concrete that's part of that, highlighting that space. And the total green space exceeds our minimum requirements. With that, staff does recommend approval of the proposed car wash, canopy, and convenience store with the 10 added recommendations or conditions. I can certainly run through anything specific. If you have any questions, the applicant is here as well as the CDA is here.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. I have a couple questions to start with. So again, I think you've explained it, but the deviations to the green space requirement that are recommended here, it's because the overall PUD, all the other properties all meet the green space requirement?
The overall PUD meets that green space requirement for the overall site. So if you look at the Valley Ridge CDA building on its own, that exceeds landscaping requirements. If you look at Lennar on its own, that exceeds requirements. The Quick Trip, it's deficient by 3%, but overall, the scope, it far exceeds landscape requirements. Where it's really deficient, I would say, is the building perimeter landscaping. Certainly, the applicant can add more to the discussion, but from an overall standpoint, staff supportive of the request.
Thank you. And you pointed out that the blowers of the car wash, so they basically aim across the street at the other car wash, right?
It would
Is that-
be internal and, aiming
yeah.
to the north.
Okay. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Commissioner Benke?
Yeah, just as a distinction, the blowers are at the north end, but they aim at the car.
Right.
So the noise actually goes both ways, except the door on the south end is closed. Okay. And actually, Ms. Dean, this might not just be for you. Can you back up a little bit here, and can we look at the entrance to the parking? I'm sorry, not that far. Can we look at can you zoom in and look at the entrance to that parking, to the parking lot from the CDA building again, right down there? Is there a way to blow that up?
Let's see, hang on.
If you look at the grading plan, you can see it
That
pretty
better?
good, yeah.
Now, the grading plan, what I'm looking for is pretty light, so I don't know that that's going to show it. Oh, and actually, this is zoomed in too close. I'm looking at I'm looking at the sidewalk on the other side of the private drive. Because the way it's arranged right now, the sidewalk from the CDA comes across and it's on the left side it's on the right side of the street. And then you have to cross the driveway again, and the sidewalk is on the right side of the entrance. I'm sorry, the left side of the entrance as you go into the project. Something's bad. Nope, it's coming from the left off screen here.
Okay.
Yeah, that one right there. Yeah, the sidewalk from the CDA, it's on the other side of the street from where you are. It comes across there, and then there's a ramp, and then you have to cross the drive again before the sidewalk brings you into the building, into the gas station. I think that sort of defeats the purpose of what we were just talking about with access. Sidewalk is on the south side of the street here, but it's on the north side of the drive going into it's right there on the top. You can see it right there, yep. So that's something that I'd like to see fixed, if that continues. I don't know why that would have, I mean, we're basically bringing them across two private drives.
Correct.
And back to that, yep. And then here, I'm going to save this for the applicant, I think. I'm just curious as to how they see that driveway connection being used. And then just a clarification that obviously they've been informed about the cutoff lights in the canopy
Correct.
and the entire project.
Yep, the site currently meets our photometric plan as proposed.
Great. Thank you.
Additional questions for Ms. Dean? Questions for the applicant?
Yes.
If the applicant would come up and if you could identify yourself and your address for the record.
Dean George, representing Quick Trip, 1626 Oak Street, La Crosse, Wisconsin, 54602.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. George, I guess that you obviously heard my comment about the sidewalk. Is there
Yep.
something that you can suggest there? And perhaps we should start by saying, what benefit do you see that access providing to your
So I didn't
facility?
realize it was up there. We can check and see if it should be moved down south of the,
The drive.
yeah, like you said. So
Okay.
I'll look into it and we'll work with staff on it.
Okay, and then the drive itself?
Yes, sir.
Is there, I mean, how do you see your fuel trucks, for example? How are they, I mean, the tanks are at the south end of the canopy there. How are they accessing the property then? Are they using that private drive or are they
No,
not?
so we think everything's going to come into our site specifically off of 136th Street as far as delivery and fuel is going to be delivered. So if it's not really, we don't have any strong inkling either way if that connection stays open or closed. We think circulation is going to be in.
So you think, I guess to not speak for you, but
Go.
you think that your circulation is gonna totally come off of 136th Street?
Primarily.
And you might be amenable to closing that drive and allowing only pedestrian access?
We would be.
Nothing?
No more?
So do you guys wanted me to comment on the building perimeter landscaping a little bit, as Ms. Dean kind of highlighted?
Yep, absolutely.
The major issue was it becomes kind of a hazard, ice and snow and water buildup, and we try salting it, but that really takes care of the pavement, and the perimeter landscape becomes tripping for people kind of stumbling through the site a little bit. It's kind of why we decided to go away from it.
While you have a retail building, it is problematic with the kind of use that you have to try to get at. We've seen that occasionally before.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, we will open the public hearing. All right, I'm going to open the public hearing at 7:44 PM. If you are interested in commenting, please come up to the podium and identify yourself and your address.
My name
Yes,
is
sir.
Dean Gendorf, 1921 West Burnsville Parkway. I'm back. I get to talk about the driveway again. This driveway, you guys are missing the cart for the horse on this whole issue with this driveway. You know, we're not really against Quick Trip and the townhome development going in, so, don't get me wrong on this. We just want the driveway to be left alone. The driveway right now, the way it's set up, with 136th Street, 136th Street is barely a two-lane road. Is that street in and of itself going to be able to handle the traffic that Quick Trip is going to produce on a daily basis, much less lunchtime, when it's used a lot, because I used to eat at Quick Trip all the time, dinner time, when people get off work. 136th Street is not going to be able to handle that traffic. I can tell you that right now. You might as well, if you continue with this, with incorporating our driveway into this project, you might as well put a street sign up on it, because it's all this, what it's going to turn into is a street. It won't be a driveway anymore. It's going to be a street. Because our driveway right now is a 4-lane road with turn lanes. If you see a little bit of traffic in front of you at Quick Trip, which way are you going to go? Are you going to go up to 136th Street and get into there? Or are you going to take the driveway? I'm telling you, you're going to be taking the driveway. My second concern with the driveway is construction traffic. How are all these trucks going to be going in to do their digging, their excavating, whatever it is? That driveway was not meant to handle construction traffic or the weight of the rigs that'll be going through there. Who gets to fix the road then? Is the city going to fix it? Well, I don't think so, because they don't own it. It's going to be coming out of us. And granted, we're just renters, but our rent goes up every single year on fixed incomes. And I'm getting tired of seeing our rent go up. That road goes, our rent goes up. Another point I have is fuel trucks. I don't think fuel trucks are going to be able to make that turn up 136th Street on a 2-lane road. Depending on which way they come in, the only way they're going to be able to come in and make that turn is off of County Road 5. And then go west on 136th Street and then turn in, utilizing that road. But when is it going to become more convenient for them to come down Burnsville Parkway and just use our driveway? And I think that's a huge concern right there. And as far as this being a mixed zone, mixed use zone thing, whatever, I guess I don't understand that. Because I think when it was originally zoned to do that, I think it was just originally zoned to do office and stuff like that, not something that's producing way more traffic than we have going on right now. And I just think that this whole project just needs to be thought out a little bit harder than what it is right now. And I would strongly recommend that the Planning Commission just stall the whole thing until they figure out what's going to happen with the driveway. The driveway is very important. It is. One other thing that I wanted to bring up is I thought it was comical that the townhomes get a buffer when we don't get a buffer. How come we don't get a buffer from the townhome development? But yet the townhomes are going to get a buffer between Quick Trip and their buildings. It just doesn't make any sense to me why. It seems like we're getting thrown underneath the bus here. And everyone's taking advantage of us because we're CDA. And I don't think it's fair and I don't think it's right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? All right, sir. Come up to the podium and identify yourself and your address for the record.
Evening. My name's Edward Lane. I live on 13528 Knox Drive, Burnsville. We just had, we can't hear very clear back there. I don't know if you're not speaking loud or your mics are turned down, but what are the hours of the car wash? I know the building's 24/7, but what are the hours of the car wash?
I can answer that, Chair. It's proposed, Quick Trip would be open 24 hours. Certainly, the applicant can speak further if they choose to limit the hours of operation based off of their business operations.
Okay. Thank you.
So they're the same then? The hours are the same?
We'll ask the applicant that.
Okay. And then also too, it was unclear if the doors will be closed when the blowers are operating.
We'll ask that
I
as well.
think the applicant can answer
Yeah.
those questions for them.
And then if they're not, I'd like it to be noted and questioned if we can limit the hours of the car wash. I know I live less than 2 lots away, and I'm concerned that there's gonna be a loud noise, especially 24/7 with the blowers. I really question the need for 2 car washes when there's a car wash right across the street. And that, I want that to be considered also. Also too, I'd like to suggest that that I can see there's a lot of concern with the drive-through from Valley Ridge. And I'd like to suggest that maybe they stagger that so that the drive coming in, straight in from the west would be staggered. Then you wouldn't be able to drive straight into Quick Trip. I think that would help these people out a lot. And then possibly speed humps or speed bumps. And then with signage that would say, and this is not a drive-through, right? Because I can see they're concerned that they're going to take a right off of Burnsville Parkway right into the Quick Trip. And maybe if you stagger that entrance, move it to the north so that they wouldn't be able to drive straight in. But, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to come up and address those questions? Thank you.
Sure. Dean George back again. I guess I'll start with the hours of operation. 24-hour operation we try to make all of our stores the same hours. We like people to know if they're traveling overnight or wherever they may be going that there's a Quick Trip. It's going to be open 24 hours. In terms of the car wash, we're open to suggestions if people are getting bothered by the noise late at night or early in the hours in the morning. We can close it. We have done that in the past. We're not opposed to doing that. So it's kind of working in the area and just kind of being good neighbors for that specific area. When the dryer's on, the doors are open. At least on the north end they will be, because that's you have to drive out. The south end, it depends on if somebody is back there waiting to get in or not. So it could be either or. If someone's behind you in line, the door will be open. If not, it'll be closed. Does that help?
Thank you.
Yep. And then one other comment, kind of on the drive connection again. When he was talking about turning radiuses on our fuel tanker deliveries and our zone delivery trucks, they're probably going to have to go in that south access point, but that'll be the only thing they go in. But they'll probably still utilize 136 to get down that road. I'd have to look, but I'm not sure they can come in and then circulate around the canopy. I can check.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I was looking at it from I mean, and Brian, I think you're gonna kick in here too right after I'm done, but it doesn't seem to me that a tanker truck can get on the private drive, make the turn on the drive into the parking lot, make the turn again to get over to the tanks on the south side of the canopy, either in or out. That doesn't seem like a valid turning motion, does it to you?
No, Commissioner, turning templates were actually submitted for the access drives, not for the private drive. So the turning movements do show the access drives do accommodate all the turning movements. I think a great point was brought up as far as the other private drive, as far as structurally. That would be a little bit, it's likely not built to accommodate a fully loaded fuel truck.
Right.
Obviously, and again, that comes down to policing things. I mean, it's, you can put all the signs up in the world, but if people don't abide by it. So I guess that those continued comments and the fact that Quick Trip doesn't necessarily think they need it leads me to more and more think that maybe a pedestrian access obviously is important, but possibly vehicle traffic is not.
I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of people scooting off of Burnsville Parkway, coming down the private drive, and then straight into our station is kind of, I guess, where we're at.
Yeah.
What we think, so,
Yep.
thank you.
So our public hearing is still open if anyone has comments.
I almost forgot what I was gonna say. Gene Gendorf, 1921 West Burnsville Parkway. I kind of beg to differ with the Quick Trip on the driveway. If you conceptualize what's going on here, if you've been by the area, you have to understand that driveway is so much easier, especially if you're going westbound on Burnsville Parkway. It's going, right now, from Burnsville Parkway to 136th Street, if you're trying to cross off of 136th Street to go on to Burnsville Parkway West, it is a nightmare with just one stop sign. It is a total nightmare. Cars will back up past the liquor store, almost to the car wash that's there now. So what's going to happen when Quick Trip and the townhome development goes in there? What driveway are they going to use? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. They're going to use our driveway because that's going to be the easiest way in. And I'm not saying to totally wipe out the driveway access. What I would probably propose to do is keep the driveway access there, but why not put in poles to keep car traffic out of there? That way you still have the pedestrian traffic going in there. But you're taking away, you've seen the poles. They go down deep in the ground, they're cemented in, they're iron poles. You put up 3 of them. You still have pedestrian traffic, but you've eliminated the car traffic until some idiot goes down there and decides it's time for him to go through there. And then you won't, then, of course, then you have some broken poles and a broken car. But I think you guys really need to understand what's going on here, and I don't think it's sinking in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Leanne Lane, and I am at 13528 Knox Drive, just kitty corner from this Quick Trip. I wasn't going to get up and speak because I'm going to be redundant to what's probably been said, but I wanted to encourage, with some sympathy for the senior building that's there, because of where we live, we have 136th Street on one side of us, and then what we have experienced, and probably 15 years ago, finally were able to put in 3 speed humps, because people will bypass and use the most convenient means of travel. So we had an abundance of Burnsville traffic using our streets, so they didn't have to go down to the light and make a right and go on to County Road 5. We had excessive speeds, and again, too much traffic for our neighborhood. And I have no doubt that that little driveway that's coming in off of Burnsville Parkway will absolutely be used in the opportunity for people to bypass the traffic. And this is my second point regarding traffic. I believe it was just a year ago, or maybe 6 to 9 months ago, that there was a huge traffic proposal at that intersection. That is a very busy intersection now. And I can't even fathom what's going to happen when this Quick Trip is fully operational and trying to accommodate the traffic that's going to be trying to get in and out of there between the townhomes, just regular traffic. Rush hour traffic, it's backed up both directions. And now if you're going to put in the gas station, convenience store, and then on top of all of that, the noise that will be in excess at that intersection. And again, it is a community, it's a residential community surrounded on 3 sides. And right now that car wash that is there, they don't have blowers. That's not an issue there. So this is so inappropriate truly for this intersection to have this quick trip there. And the volume and the traffic, and it's going to really disturb what has been a reasonable residential community. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this one, to this project? If not, we'll close the public hearing at 8 o'clock. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Commissioner.
Oh, somebody has her.
Yeah, we'll reopen the public hearing at 8:08, or 8 o'clock. Ma'am?
I'm Linda Cater,
Yep.
1921 West Burnsville Parkway. Could somebody just explain to me what's happening with all the water? Apparently you all have a very good understanding of that. In this same building, I've attended rain garden meetings where they're trying to encourage people to develop these things for their private homes for the amount of water that are shed off of private roofs. So now you don't have grass out there, you have 27 roofs. And once, since I've lived there, we had so much water coming off of that property that it ended up running down into our garage. Granted, our pumps, did not work, which created the situation. But where's all the water going? Like, can you just explain what it is that you have underground under certain driveways? And how is that functioning and working within the code that Burnsville's trying to establish, where it was commercial buildings always had to account for their water, and they're trying to now encourage residential buildings to keep some of their water to raise the water table?
Thank you. Brian, did you want to
Absolutely.
weigh in on that?
Absolutely, Commissioners. I can address that question. It's essentially, what's happening is it's a rain garden that you can't see. Very similar soil mixtures. It's essentially pipes underground, so it captures the water within a storm sewer system, but it puts it underground because there's again, not a lot of green space to route this water to directly. So they put these pipes underground. These pipes are perforated so that the water infiltrates into the sandier soils below them and then filtrates into another pipes that ultimately end up in that pond, which on the site plan you can see, or the grading plan here on the very west end of the site. So it's basically an underground rain garden is really what's happening, and then ultimately the overflow ends up in the pond to the west.
And that is only just rainwater that's being processed that way, like not car wash water?
That's correct.
Okay, if there's nobody else, I'm going to reclose the public hearing, 8:03. All right. Commissioners? Discussion. Commissioner Binky?
You assume something.
Commissioner Brett?
Actually,
I'll
I wasn't
address a
ready
couple
yet.
of
I wasn't
questions
ready
then.
yet.
So, staff, we had some comments about buffers. And correct me if I'm wrong, typically our code will drive a buffer between a commercial development and a residential development. We don't have any requirements for a buffer between residential and residential, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, the direction of the, it's kind of splitting hairs. It's, the car washes, the exit of the car wash is really gonna face northwest?
Northwest.
Yes. Because County 5 goes due north and south, correct? Okay.
That's a good point. Thought it was straight north.
And then help me with in comparison, I mean, I haven't been here as long as our
Somebody.
sitting historian. The traffic patterns and from when the mall was there. I mean, it was dead at the end, I get that, but,
Conversationally here, the only difference I can see is that the mall was more of a typical retail hours.
Okay.
So that would be the big difference. Quite honestly, I see the traffic as being roughly equivalent. I mean, quite honestly, the parking lot that was here for Valley Ridge when it was Valley Ridge, and it was occasionally full, was easily, you know, it's significantly bigger than the current parking lots with these projects developed.
In totality, okay. I'm just trying to understand a couple things.
Commissioners, I'll also mention that, and there was some traffic analysis submitted. It does show that the street network can handle that traffic, that will be, created. I will note too that at County Road 5 and Burnsville Parkway, there are several improvements, planned for this coming year with signals, timing, things like that to help flow with the traffic. That'll be done, as well as some good ADA, pedestrian improvements to that intersection. So that, again, it's, you know, a little bit to the north, but it will definitely help that area, and it will help traffic flow in that area as well.
And that was done in lieu of the traffic roundabouts that were also considered here.
Correct.
Because we considered roundabouts at both intersections and landed with lights at both intersections, is that?
And timing.
Yeah.
Timing as well.
Commissioner Braddock, were you done?
I am, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Banky?
Thank you. I think the construction traffic, quite honestly, I don't think that even factors in, because clearly no one's gonna be using the driveway from Valley Ridge to build this project. I do appreciate the comments regarding potentially changing the hours, and I appreciate that the applicant has talked a little bit about being amenable to that. I do acknowledge the proximity here. You know, clearly, there are residential units nearby. There's apartment buildings, I guess, quite a ways away, but the townhouses, obviously, they'll know it's there when they move in. I think it's the people who are adjacent that haven't had it before where the problem comes in. I do think that access, I did appreciate Mr. Lane's comment that staggering the access or eliminating it, I do see that as a benefit. I can see the connection from a pedestrian standpoint. I don't see it so much from the vehicles. I don't like the idea of that straight shot functioning well, given the other geometry in the area. I do think that there would be some people who might try to shortcut from Quick Trip to or from Quick Trip through the CDA parking lot, and I don't think that's a desired goal in any sense. I think as to the use, it's an allowed use, so I guess from that standpoint, I don't have a lot to say about it.
Additional comments, or is there a motion?
Well, I have a question for staff. From
Commissioner Brad.
Commissioner Benke. Would you believe, would it be an appropriate discussion or revision to our recommendations that we would like to have some work done with staff to either stagger the drive or eliminate the drive, depending on best case scenario with how could we move forward with that?
I think at this point, that's another application. That connection was part of the last application.
I realize that.
Not this application.
Seeing where the edge is
Yeah.
now, I do realize that I think that's what I was sort of trying to do at the end, but I wasn't quite sure how, and now I saw it. Well, council will see it in the same order, will they not? I mean,
Yes.
they'll say.
I mean, if you want to add a note, otherwise you'd
Yeah.
have to go back and reopen that public hearing and change your motion and
Well, I think-
whatnot if you want to change
I think
that access.
I think if we ask to stagger it, that doesn't change the previous approval, though.
Correct.
It's removing it that might, we could leave a note to council on that.
To stagger the entrance?
No, that just, we could make the recommendation to stagger, but leave council a note that we'd be amenable to closing it entirely if it works for the applicant, I guess.
Help us with
That
some
makes sense.
direction there.
I think that probably would be the way I would phrase it if I was changing the recommendation.
Ms. Stanley.
From a standpoint of a recommendation, how would you like to have that worded?
Let me go back. So, let me understand, so, the recommendation would be to either close or stagger you're talking about the CDA driveway
I
on their
I think I have it. I think what
Okay.
I would suggest is that we would add, at some point, we would add a recommendation that would stagger the entrance to the Quick Trip from the CDA driveway as part of the cross-access agreement. So it could be added to number 8, with a note to council, not part of the recommendations, that we would certainly be amenable to remove it entirely. And all this would be as part of revising the sidewalk layout to be more pedestrian-friendly.
Okay.
Ms. Garrett's given our first action with they had to be across from each other?
For the Lennar development?
Yeah. So they had, our action with the cross-access agreement requires those two roads to be across from each other?
That it's maintained, that the cross-access, it was worded almost identical to item number 9 on your PowerPoint presentation in front of you. Just that cross-access.
I think the distinction here is this cross-access only requires, it talks about allowing traffic back and forth. It doesn't specify where it is. I don't think that's what this cross word means here. I think as long as it goes across, it meets the words.
And Commissioner Banky is getting at, with this site plan, you do have the access shown into this lot for the Quick Trip. So,
Right.
Making adjustments is appropriate, for this site plan. It
Yeah.
can be done, and
Right.
you don't need to go back and
Right.
change anything from your previous recommendation on the other site.
So we could ask for the access on this application to be staggered.
Yes.
And
Eliminate
it
the,
doesn't affect.
doesn't affect.
Right.
Someone prepared to put
Yeah,
that into a
I
motion?
will, just since I'm the one that created it. I do appreciate what you guys are talking about. I do think you have to keep in mind that this is a developable, an area that was planned as being developed from day one. And the fact that your building is there first is always part of the struggle that we all have in terms of how do we manage development that happens in pieces. And I do think that a lot of your comments, I know will be listened to by the council because they watch these and they understand and they'll expect you to be there too. Now with that said, I would like to make a recommendation to the Planning Commission recommend City Council approval of development stage plan unit development for the Quick Trip convenience store with a fueling canopy and attached double bay car wash located at the southwest corner of 136th Street and County Road 5, subject to the following conditions. So all 9 of them as written with 8, including our commentary on staggering the drives to eliminate potential through traffic, and also to correct what appears to be a flaw in the sidewalk layout for pedestrian access. And then, like I said, also then with a note to council that it appears that, and I don't want to speak totally for you guys, so definitely
Part of your motion.
hit me if I speak out of turn, but that I don't think any of us are that tied into having that driveway access to the private drive to the townhouses. If Quick Trip decides that they want to talk through that with staff and eliminate it, I'm okay with that personally.
Are you comfortable with that as the motion?
Move so, yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do
Have a
we have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that will be on the city council agenda as well on
The February
February 19th.
19th,
It's
or
5
February 20th, excuse me.
February 20th.
5:30.
At 5:30 PM. thank you to everybody for your participation in that one. And I think we're on our last agenda item, which is a public hearing for Carwall MN Burr LLC for a planned unit development amendment for an open sales rental lot and to construct a new 35,200 square foot Walzer Subaru dealership with accessory car wash at 14900 Buck Hill Road. Ms. Garros.
Thank you, members of the commission. We do have the applicant here this evening as well to be able to address the planning commission if questions come up. This is a public hearing as well. And this is an item that some of our commissioners may recall. There's been lots of various activity associated with the subject site over the years. The subject site is a corner lot, if you will, it fronts Crystal Lake Road west on the south, and then also Buck Hill Road on the east. It is part of the entire block that's shown here from Burkhards Drive to Crystal Lake Road, from Buck Hill Road back to Burnhaven Drive, are all sites that are under the same ownership. Walzer has control over these sites and is proposing to make an amendment to their planned unit development and to construct a new dealership building. This is something that was contemplated in 2015 when there was a dealership building that was located on this lot. It was removed when the new Walzer Honda just to the north was constructed, and then there was a later PUD amendment just to allow the subject site to be an open sales lot without a principal building, but there was a condition in that PUD that they needed to construct a building by 2020. So the applicant is really fulfilling the previous PUD through their site application. In terms of benefits, we will have a new building that'll be constructed on the site, adding to the commercial tax base for the city. The proposal is to relocate the Subaru dealership from its current location down on 121st Street to the new subject site in the new building. The Subaru dealership at 121st Street has been there for a number of years, but they've always been more popular than the site can accommodate. So it's a smaller site, and that small site has been an issue. They'd wanted to expand, got approval to expand, but it just is not working so well. So the opportunity then is to build a new 35,200 square foot Subaru dealership at this location. And then once that is constructed, Subaru will relocate, and then there will be a relocation of the Walzer used vehicle site down to that 121st station or site. The proposal does satisfy the 2015 PUD amendments. And then overall green space exceeds the 25%. They're going to have more than that at 26. And then green space within the parking area also exceeds the 8% standard. They're proposing 9%. All of those are PUD benefits. There are some deviations that are requested, and a majority of these are deviations that are allowed by the ordinance via a conditional use permit or PUD, which this is at. They are looking for an accessory car wash allowed as a CUP. Staff supports this. It's not really a deviation, but that's how we've called them out in the past. It's allowed by the ordinance with the CUP or PUD. Deviation for the proposed pylon sign. They're proposing to reuse the existing sign at the Walzer Subaru on 121st Street to bring it to this location. That does require some setback deviations to be able to do that. Staff is supportive of that because they're reusing the same sign. I'll get into that a little bit further. There is a deviation that's requested to allow 37 as opposed to 50% building perimeter landscaping. Staff does not support this. We have done an analysis of the other dealerships within this area, and deviations to that building perimeter landscaping have not been granted. So we are not supportive of this one. Deviation from parking lot screening standards along are adjacent to Buck Hill Road. Staff is not supportive of that. We'd like to see them meet the ordinance unless there is some issue with the utilities. In that event, if the utilities won't allow anything to be planted and they can provide documentation to the city, then we would be satisfied with that. Also, probably the largest deviation is related to the exterior lighting or photometrics for the property. They are to not exceed 0.5 foot candle along basically the area adjacent to residential, which would be along Crystal Lake Road, because we have residential to the south. And then along the other 3 lot lines, you can see that they are exceeding the 1 foot candle standard by quite a bit, up to 16.4% along the east property line, up to 9% along the south. Let's see. And there is also exceeding on the north property line, and staff is not in support of deviations to the illumination standard. Again, we've reviewed the other car lots up in this area, and there have been no other deviations. And the 2015 PUD also did have a condition requiring the lighting to meet the ordinance. The last deviation isn't so much a deviation, but again, something that's allowed by ordinance. The auto dealerships are allowed to have a reduced curb height. That amendment was made to the ordinance some years ago, and if the plans actually show the proposed curb as being B612, but if they want to go to the B412, they are allowed to do that via CUP or PUD, and staff wants to make sure that if they decide that they want to do that, they have the opportunity to do so. In terms of the site plan, we've got the entire property, and the proposal is for a new dealership building. They are proposing a car wash, accessory car wash, and the proposal is basically to enter on the north and come through and then leave through the south. In terms of the overall site plan, what is changing other than the addition of the new building is that there are currently 2 driveway accesses, one up in this location, one here. This northerly driveway is proposed to be closed, so that is actually also a benefit that we should have included in the benefits, because that closing additional accesses is a positive seen from the city standpoint. In addition to that, they are proposing a new trash enclosure building at this location. The sign that is proposed is at this location, just south of the main entrance to the site. As I said, there are some deviations for setbacks, but from a staff standpoint, they're minor in regard to the other types of signs that are located along Buck Hill Road. They're proposing, in terms of the access to the site, basically to come through with their trucks and deliveries through here, and then access out to another lot that is owned by Walzer. In terms of the floor plan, very straightforward. We've got the car wash, there's a service shop, break rooms, an area for reception. Service reception area is here, some internal offices, deliveries, and there's also a mezzanine that's proposed, second floor mezzanine, really for storage of parts. The elevations shown, I think, are give you an idea that the building will be a very nice building in terms of the other buildings within the area. They are proposing to use a mix of materials, somewhat similar to the existing Walzer Subaru. They've got a tower in this location, which is going to be of a slate-colored material, gray. That is exactly the same material that's on the existing Subaru building. Then they've got metal ACS panels that will be a silver color. A lot of glass is proposed throughout the project area, exceeding the ordinance requirements. And then in addition to that, the amount of metal that's proposed does not exceed the 50% standard that city just recently adopted for commercial buildings. These would be the other elevations, also showing what the plantings will look like at a mature date. The signage that's proposed, the wall signs, are well within the amount of signage allowed by the ordinance. And then we've got the specifics in terms of the elevation plans themselves. And the landscape plan, and what I wanted to note on this is the primary changes from what's existing is that there's a larger area in through here currently in about this location that's green space. They are pushing that back, if you will, to allow them to get additional storage and stacking on this part of the lot. But really, primarily, the only other changes are changes to where they're either taking out or replacing, putting elsewhere, landscape islands within the parking lot. The most notable would be this one that's proposed in the east part of the site, along here. It's about a 5-foot wide, but it's a continuous planter, very similar to what is on the Honda site to the north. The trash enclosure will have similar materials as the proposed building. And this is showing the Subaru sign. Again, signage meets the ordinance with the exception of some setbacks. And the photometric plan we included, although it's really difficult to read this, but actually do when you do blow it up, what we note is that the 1-foot candle standard is far exceeded along the north, the east, and the west property lines. And staff's recommendation is that they meet the ordinance illumination standards. If there are questions related to the utilities, topography, et cetera, those can be addressed by Mr. Hillgardner. And again, we've got, for the grading plan, the one thing that I do want to note is in order to get this area of parking in, there are retaining walls that are proposed in this location, which are up to about 8 feet in height, and then along the north as well, which are at the highest point about 5 feet in height. There is not a particular type or style of fencing that's proposed. Staff is recommending that fencing be installed, especially because of the height of those retaining walls along that edge. With that, the recommendation from staff is to approve the PUD amendment application subject to the 11 conditions. I believe that's it. The 11 conditions that are as part of your report. And if you want me to go through those individually, I can do so, or if you have questions, I would be glad to address those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garros. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Garros?
Just, I think
Commissioner Bank.
one, thank you. The snow storage, I saw you skipped over that slide. I was having trouble orienting myself on site.
Yep.
Oh, that's what those two
Yes.
areas are, okay.
This area here and this area here. And what we were indicating is that based on what is actually out there in the field, this is approximately, this circle shows approximately that area where snow storage is proposed, and we've got actually screening landscaping there. So we're asking the applicant to revise the location of that snow storage or show us an alternative location for the snow storage.
Okay, and then the lights. So basically, something happened with the installation of the lights on the parking lot? They didn't follow their plan, or?
That's correct. There's not a plan that we have that shows that approval or permits associated with that.
Okay. But they did have lights on their plan when they were converting it into a parking lot.
Yes, they did, and there was a condition in that PUD that
Right.
they bring the lighting into
Right.
compliance. So it was over, the illumination levels were over the ordinance standard at that
Okay.
point as well.
Okay. And then where is the gas line? I wasn't seeing it on the site plan.
I'm
Gas
sorry.
easement?
Oh, the natural gas easement?
Yeah.
It is approximately in this location here.
Because that's showed as a Dakota Electric easement.
Or, I'm sorry, Dakota Electric, yep. The natural gas easement, I believe,
On Buck Hill.
is basically running
Okay, it was,
along
okay,
through this area.
okay. And I worked with them before, and it's very difficult to get them to accept any vegetation.
Yes, we've had examples where they have been more, I guess, allowing more than they used to in some of these easements. But I think it's dependent upon the easement and what is actually and where the pipe is actually located. So from a staff standpoint, we're recommending they meet the ordinance. However, if they provide documentation from the utility that they won't allow it, then we would not require it.
Okay. And then I think the last thing is the car wash direction.
Yes,
And you are recommending that they reverse it?
yes.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
So clarification, so which way would be the entrance and an exit on the car wash?
What is proposed now is that the vehicle
The exit.
stacking is here.
Yep.
And they come in here and exit at this location, and this is where the residential is in this area. So what staff is recommending is to switch that so that they enter on the south and exit on the north.
Okay,
If I may.
thank you, Commissioner Pink.
Deb, is there a bigger overview aerial that shows where Quick Trip is across the street from this and where the entrance to the church is? And, oh, so we do go as far over as the apartment building?
Yep. In that location.
Sure.
The car
And
wash would
right there,
be
yep.
about in this location
Yep,
here.
right there, okay.
Commissioner Bradrick, questions for you?
So a couple things. Just to, I'll be honest with you, I disagree with the snow storage thing. First of all, I'm not a big fan of the city dictating that. People that plow lots are gonna put snow wherever they wanna put it. I did look, previous to the plan being, or our meeting being canceled, I was driving on the site. And the current snow storage, I do disagree with the city's labeling of where it is. I believe where that is too steep to get snow to, and where they were currently stacking snow was light vegetation, some vines and stuff where I saw snow stacked. So I know we're asking to put a different spot on their plan, which they can do, but in the end, the people that plow snow are gonna put snow wherever they want to
We
put
do
snow.
have that standard in the ordinance, however, so.
I know. So I struggle with that. The lighting deviation, obviously, there was a plan in place, and I think the idea is that there was all, when the Lincoln Mercury building was torn down, and there was all new lighting put in at the time. I don't think there's any existing lighting on this new lot. So I think this is all new from 2015. It was just not installed to the matrix, correct?
That must be the case. I know that our other planner, Chris Laney, had worked on this. All I can tell you from review of the application is that there was a condition that illumination levels meet the ordinance. And then with this application being submitted with the existing photometrics, they don't meet the ordinance. They're way, way over.
Okay.
If I may, my recollection was that all of the foundations for the lights were brought in precast and were all set new, so I would agree with you that they all came in.
Yeah, they all came
brand
in
new.
new.
Yeah,
So
they
it was
cleared, they
just a-
cleared the site from Lincoln Mercury.
And, so, and then the other, I do, there was some in our background from the applicant about, standard practice is the exposure to a car wash is to the south, so there's some sun. Honda's, the Honda one, when you leave, faces the east. Nissan faces the south. Then you get to Toyota and it's east and west. The Mazda dealership goes to the west. I did look at this.
Wow, I know you, I'm impressed.
And I couldn't really, I think the old Saturn dealership that's now a Hyundai, I couldn't really tell. I couldn't see where the controls were. So
About the
I
Volkswagen?
struggle with a couple of things. A, this is really, really close to the interstate from a noise standpoint, and I differ from a standpoint of the noise that the interstate's creating to that residential versus a car wash. And the site is substantially lower at that point. There's a fairly decent grade change from their parking lot up to Crystal Lake, so.
It's at least 10 feet, yes.
Yeah, there's a pretty substantial, and you're a little ways away from the building, but, you know, I get back to, once again, we're essentially putting a building in place that's identical that was built many, many, many years ago, and they tore it down, they cleaned it up, and they're bringing in a much better looking facility, so, you know, I can be supportive of this, because I'm not typically like to nitpick at recommendations. I just wanted to go on record that switching the car wash, to me, doesn't look like it's going to work well from a flow in the lot with the only one entrance. Plus the southern exposure thing is kind of an issue with me. Oh, and help me with the landscaping. Deb, you said there were no deviations, but I drove up and down Buck Hill, and I really couldn't tell any difference today from this lot versus what we required Honda to do and what Nissan did. And, I mean, I think I've sat in now on every single revision, except for maybe Hyundai, they didn't need to do anything. What are we gonna ask them to do? Because I know there's always been an issue with blocking views of the cars.
Right, and we're not asking that. The ordinance has changed over the years, and also when I did my review, I did it based on the plans and the conditions that were approved, not what's out there today.
Okay.
Because that may or may not actually be meeting, you know, what they were approved at.
Right.
We're looking at up to 3 feet shrub plantings that the ordinance requires. We believe that that can be done. These are the PUDs that have been approved. This one, 2015, for this site, shows landscaping along there. We also have, this is Crystal Lake Road and Burkhards Drive. So there is landscaping in through this area, but not here, so in that location. As far as this one is 2008, Luther, Burnsville, Hyundai, they've got trees that were planted along there. Also, over time, the ordinance has changed with return, you know, with
Yeah, I
the
was just trying to
requirements as well.
understand, given what's other ones have in place.
Yep, this one,
That's the Nissan dealership.
yep,
yeah.
0507, so they have trees in that location. Toyota does not have as much landscaping. They basically have it at the corners and at the entries in these locations. And
We'll call you up here in a second, sir.
then this is the 2000 Chrysler Isuzu, and that has, again, trees along Buck Hill Road. Saturn, Burnhaven Drive, South Cross Drive, doesn't have Buck Hill Road, but these were the plans that have been approved over time.
Okay.
Any more questions for Ms. Garros?
I do not.
We'll call the applicant up. Sir, identify yourself for the record and.
Sure, my name is David Phillips. I'm the architect for Walzer Automotive Group. My office is at 227 Colfax Avenue North in Minneapolis. If I could back up for a minute, at the request of the staff, we did get a letter from the gas pipeline company, and they've advised us in writing that we'll present to them, they will not allow anything but grass in their easement, which is the entire green area in front of this dealership. This is at the end of the row, and when Buck Hill, I built the original Lincoln Mercury there, I think it was in 1986. This lot has had additional right-of-way taken. That's why you see it narrow very much at the south. It differs. Some of the other dealerships to the north have a 20-foot buffer plus the 10 feet of buffer in the right-of-way. This one is 10 feet because of years ago taking. So to shorten it, the federal pipeline rules and the pipeline company will not allow landscaping on this site. if I could address the lighting for a minute. The lighting on Crystal Lake Road, whether it's 0.9 or 0.5, our software isn't good enough to differentiate less than a half a foot candle. It just, it doesn't do a good job of taking into account the 10-foot rise on there, so what it might be reading is an error. That'd be on the Crystal Lake Road side. We'd be happy to put shades on that side, but it really isn't gonna spill uphill there. The internal lot lines, we want the light. We don't want dark stripes on our block here, and we'll have other developments we're proposing immediately to the west of this one. The light along Crystal Lake Road exists today, so you can go out tonight, it's dark, and you can see what it is. I don't know what it is. The engineer that provided us the photometric in 15 might be different. Again, I have no objection to putting shades if we measure it there. Past practice, I've done 4 of the dealerships along Buck Hill Road here 5 times, counting this one. And in past practice, they've always thought that a little extra spill on the curb line of Buck Hill Road was not an issue on there. They didn't see it as a safety hazard that the edge of the road was lit. But we don't have an objection adding a physical shade on the back of the lighting to that, but we don't want to do that between our own properties. Any spill from the top of this hill helps light my driveway to the north on Honda, which is down a slope, and so we don't see the need to internalize. The property lines are because of previous. We had to separate this lot to get it ready for another new building, as opposed to being on the same lot as Honda. This used to be part of the Honda lot, and then it was not part of the Honda lot, and it's just been a long history. But as far as the public roads, we have no problem with shades. The internal, we'd ask you to allow us to light our own property at night. In both cases, I set up high, so any spill lights my lower driveway on there. I think the other question was the perimeter of our building. We suffer a similar fate to the Quick Trip that you just had a deviation on the perimeter. I've got 4 new car delivery doors to the north where I never used to have new car delivery doors. We have the service door and the car wash door. As you go around, we have the delivery areas and the entrances and exits to there. And it's really, we exceed the landscaping requirement both in the lot and on the total on this site alone. We aren't averaging like the previous one that you just recommended approval on. And we would ask that we would rather not try and take out sidewalks for our customers to add additional green space. In particular, we have parking in front of the showroom, and we have a sidewalk there to bring our customers up to the showroom entrance. So that we would ask that you not require or not recommend that. Was there any other questions? I hope I addressed them all. I do agree, by the way, with that slope. Commissioner Braddock indicated we do have a steep slope that goes up to the Quick Trip. So we're really offset that car wash entrance from the condos which are up on the hill behind us. We had a Walser VP slip at a car wash that was facing north and have a severe injury. They ice up, and Walser's direction to me since then has been to see that the car washes are in the sun as the at the exits. They're just constantly in the shade on the north side. You get a lot of ice because that's where the dripping of the car's now been washed. You have the air dryer, but that's where the cars drip off on the pavement as they exit there. So we really feel strongly that it's a safety factor that we keep that south. The Honda, which is on the east, is also on the southeast. So the pavement that is that is our exit from Honda, just to the north of this, is in the sun also. And then finally, this car wash at Walser has changed their operations. This car wash is for dealer personnel only. So we have stacking along that north curb line that can then turn to get into the car wash and exit and park. It's, as you can see on the site, the building is a big building for the site.
So one question, so you said for dealer staff only, so that means that it's not anybody that buys a car brings their car there. It's actually got to be somebody who's getting their car serviced or?
Walser has since worked out an arrangement with, I can let Doug talk about that, Super America. Let me have Doug tell you how they handle car washes now.
I'm Doug Sprinthal. I work for Walser. My address is 13572 Dan U. Blaine, Rosemont, and I'm here to speak about exciting car washes. Basically, the reason we're doing this is we're a victim of our own success. When they built the current Subaru site, we thought, man, if we can sell 40 cars a month, this is going to be great. Well, we sell 150 and we can't build enough. Similar thing happened with our car wash program. For years, we gave free car washes away to anybody that bought a car, thinking it was wonderful. It was wonderful until we started selling more and more cars, and then people just got pissed off because they were waiting forever. So we worked out an agreement with Super America where we give people free car washes for, I think it's 4 or 5 months when they buy a new car from us, and after that they're on their own. So what David's getting at, the volume is not like a retail operation, like a Quick Trip or something like that. We wash every service vehicles, obviously the lot cars before we deliver them, but that's about it. Any more exciting questions about car washes?
For that?
I do,
Commissioner
actually.
Benke?
Yeah, actually, I think I had challenged Dave when he was here last time, when you were adding on down by Dodge Burnsville.
Subaru.
Yeah, is how you were gonna handle the additional cars.
Yeah,
I was totally thinking that you're gonna have a parking ramp down there for your cars. Oh, no, you're gonna move it up here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We actually ended up getting a building permit for the addition on 121st Street, and when we really looked at it, it's just Subaru is a quality product that just needs more room to sell.
Sure, I guess the car wash still. So are the obvious, okay, so your staff is bringing them through, and I'm doing this mainly for
Yeah.
the neighbors.
Sure.
Okay, so your staff is bringing them through. They control the doors. The blowers are right at the door? That's a pretty long tunnel you got there.
This is not a pull-through, but yeah, the blowers, what we have is, we have a high pressure, so we can knock the ice out of the wheel wells. We have a rollover car wash in this one.
Okay.
And then the blowers are probably 10 feet from the door, so the door starts to open as you go through there. So you will have the open door, just like at Quick Trip, as the blowers are finishing.
But you also have the buffer of the 10 feet, so that the blower is not right at the door like it is in a typical
Right.
gas station car wash.
The blower will be inside
Right.
the door. As Doug mentioned, they'll wash every service vehicle. We wash some lot vehicles as, depending on
Yeah,
weather.
we sell them. People, we
Or-
found that they like their cars to be clean when they pick them up.
Yeah.
Imagine
Just a
that,
few,
you
yeah.
know?
Thankfully, we're last.
What is the entrance right next to the exit to the car wash then? Is that the exit from the service bay? Or is that the entrance to the service bay?
What we have the parts delivery there.
Okay,
And then the exit from the service bay goes to the west, right where the car wash
Right there, yep,
entrance is.
right, and that's-
We don't expect that one to be used except when a door breaks down on the main entrance to which is on the center aisle.
I guess I was looking at traffic. If the traffic was coming out of the service bay through there, you're gonna have more traffic and it's gonna help with the ice that would build up.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
All right.
one will exit on a slab that has less ice on it too.
Okay.
Snow storage, we'll find a place that works on our block here. We don't have, right?
Okay, I'm good.
Whatever you say, Dave.
We're gonna do that. We would like, the important things are, it's very difficult to add any more perimeter landscaping without just, for instance, taking out that concrete between the front of the cars and the showroom windows there on the north.
What about on the south side, on the south of the
On the south side, we do
service
have
bay?
landscaping. Yeah, that is part of our landscape island there.
Nothing is shown on the
Nothing's
plan
shown
for
there.
landscaping.
I can't tell you that.
And nothing shown on the,
All the islands will be landscaped. They're in the count and they're 6 feet. The south wall.
yeah, the south wall of the service bay doesn't show anything, the west wall or south of, oh, whatever, I think, what is it, parts
I will
there?
correct that,
then
but
the-
they're intended to be landscaped.
Well, I'm just seeing opportunity for you to meet the standard where we don't have to give you
No,
a
that gets
deviation.
us to the 37%.
Because right now it's just labeled as L, which means new curb. So that was gonna be my question.
Sure.
Are those all just, I get that the rest of the building can't be landscaped, but I didn't understand what all of those curbs
I
were.
apologize. No, those are landscape areas. They will have plantings in them.
Well, just by sight, that appears that we're way closer to the 50% then.
So
Okay,
then in reality, we could just leave this recommendation in place and they could make changes to meet that.
yeah.
Well, it's still not 50%.
Oh, I would think,
Awfully
We
close.
had all
Sure
those
looks
up.
close to me on here.
I would say
if
it's
all of
gotta
those
be
are.
close.
Yeah,
You've got the island on the south side of where the
Service
cars are
drive,
being
yeah.
delivered. You've got the island, that
there.
may be a little narrow right
That
there.
one I can't get,
That's a little
not
narrow,
6 feet.
but you've got that
that
island.
one.
Yeah.
You've got the island all the way along the car wash.
If you let me count the extensions, that would help.
Oh, yeah,
We can do that.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. and
We're
then
just
the-
looking, to be more in
and then-
alignment, and our comments are based on the plans, so.
Yeah.
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 I believe the 37% or 40% is correct. And those islands, it's a mistake on this plan that they don't show plantings. We'll correct that
Okay.
on there.
Planning Commission wants to note or modify that condition, just that, these sites that you've discussed tonight will be landscaped.
Right.
And whatever that comes up to be, even if it's less than 50%, Planning Commission is okay with that.
That works.
I would also point out here, if you look at the parking in the front, we have that long landscape strip that's not required, but we like it as a separation to kind of define customer cars from the other, and it kind of repeats the theme we have at Honda, just to the north. And we like that look at Honda, so we've added it here.
Okay, any more questions for the applicant?
I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will, Deb, did you have additional point?
Would like to just clarify for the Planning Commission and the public, in terms of the illumination levels, what's along the south actually meets the ordinance. So everything along Crystal Lake Road meets the ordinance, it's under half-foot candle. Where we have issues is along Buck Hill Road. It's supposed to be 1-foot candle, they have lighting levels up to 16.4. On the north lot line, which is adjacent to another Walzer site, but the ordinance says lot lines should be 1-foot candle. That north lot line goes up to 39.3. And then on the west lot line, that's up to 18.5. And 1-foot candle is the maximum based on the ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deb?
Commissioner Banky.
Deb, is there a way for us to put a restriction on that? I mean, and this is all based on that lot being sold to another car dealer, where it's not your lot. I realize it is now, and it may never be anything other than a Walzer lot, but the potential is to sell it. So I'm just wondering if we can include something in the recommendation that, should the lot be sold, that they would bring those lamps into compliance with shades.
These are so far out of conformance.
Okay.
I don't think that's appropriate in
Okay.
the opinion of staff.
Okay. Okay.
It's different if you're, 2, 3, but under 39, 20, And there have been no other deviations for any of the car dealerships, and we do have the photometric plans
Sure.
that show that they all meet the 1-foot candle.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions?
I'm good.
I'm gonna then open up the public hearing at 8:54 PM. Is there anyone here to speak on this one? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 8:54 PM. Commissioners, discussion.
We had some discussion based around the car wash. How do we feel about how the car wash lays out?
I'm fine with it.
With the staff recommendation of making a move it or leave it
No,
as?
I'm fine with the without that recommendation. I'm fine
I'm
with
as
it.
well.
I'm fine with the car wash where it is, given that it's not a public, a more typical public use car wash. I feel like Walzer can manage the sound because it's there, it's
And the elevation.
totally under their control.
That would be, I'm sorry, Chair, but that would be removing recommendation number 5. Any other?
Commissioner.
Are you looking for?
I'm looking for a
Well,
motion or discussion.
I would be willing to make a motion.
I'm fine with that.
But Deb, can we go back to your, to the perimeter landscaping, so I would word that appropriately?
Oh, I'm sorry, right.
So, the plan shall be revised to provide the 50% building perimeter landscaping and planter islands of at least 6 feet wide. So you said something about we could make a comment that the planning commission intends on the islands that are marked all concrete would be landscaped, or do you want us to change the recommendation? Help me with what you were saying there. I was trying to listen diligently, but I
Yep.
lost it.
That's okay. Really, on the planting schedule, if you just want to refer to that, as long as these islands that you identified, and those we discussed at the meeting, have landscape material within them, regardless of what that percentage is, that's acceptable.
So I can just say that. Okay. Thank you. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Commissioner Bradrick.
I'd like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the City Council of the PUD amendment for the proposed Walzer Subaru dealership building, open sales rental lot, and accessory car wash, subject to the following conditions. Removing condition number 5. And in reference to condition number 7, we had a discussion with the applicant about the islands currently marked L on the plan be revised to include landscaping and to have staff work out we approve the percentage as to staff works with them. Is that workable?
That makes sense.
I think I would add to the islands marked L that they're on the south and west and north sides of the building.
Do that.
Yeah, we
I wasn't
discussed
sure.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where, but yeah.
That's true. Yeah, we did discuss it. They're all, but when you go to L, it just says concrete.
So we're
Okay.
clear on the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'm seeing none, so we will move to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. That is, sure.
My whole career has been coming to planning commission and city council meetings. And tonight I saw again what I really enjoy about city meetings. An ordinary citizen can come in and actually affect your decision. And you people provide such an important forum for your citizens. And I just want to thank you for your service. And I enjoyed your discussion on the project before mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your saying that. All right. I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda. Any updates from staff or commissioners?
There are a couple of updates. We do have on Thursday this week, I believe that's the 22nd? No, I don't know what the date is. My notes are over there. But on Thursday this week, here at City Hall from 3:30 to 5:30, there will be an open house with the Lower Minnesota River Watershed District. And they're proposing, they're updating their watershed district plans which affects properties mostly between Highway 13 and the Minnesota River, but some beyond that. The standards that they are considering will have major impacts on development in Burnsville. They are much different than the standards that the city of Burnsville has allowed, and so far, we have been trying to work with them to allow alternative standards such as reuse. We've not been successful to date. So that may be of interest to the Planning Commission. What will happen with that is, once the watershed district adopts their plan, they notify all the cities, and then we have 18 months to update our ordinances and plans accordingly.
So this Thursday is the
This
15th?
Thursday,
That's
yeah.
the 15th, okay.
February 22nd from
Did I
3:30
lie?
to 5:30.
Thank you, the
Oh, it is the
22nd.
20
I
it
was
is the
thinking it was
22nd.
this week Thursday. Okay, it's next.
That's what's on your notes, Deb. I can
Okay, that would
quickly
be
verify.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and our next planning commission is February 26th. That sound right? All right, if that's nothing, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good evening.
Thank you.